Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Flight Sim Historian channel. For this video, I am going to be outlining some aircraft that I would love to see in DCS, either as high-fidelity mods or as full modules. Starting off, we're going to be looking at the Douglas A-1 Skyraider. I want to see this in DCS primarily because I think the sim lacks a piston-driven dedicated ground attack aircraft. And the SPAD also has a rather large historical significance, having been used widely during both Korea and Vietnam, as well as the Suez Crisis and the Algerian War for Independence. If this aircraft were to come to DCS, the models I'd most like to see would be the AD6 or AD7, also known as the A1H and A1J. Of course, in terms of firepower, the Skyraider has the 4 20mm cannons, 2 in each wing, and a large number of bombs and rockets, including the Mark 80 series of bombs, the SUU-14A/A submunition dispenser, and of course the infamous toilet bomb. The second aircraft I would love to see in DCS is the North American AT-6 Texan, also known as the Harvard. Because ever since the Yak-52 was released for DCS back in, I think it was like 2018, I have seen the potential that the T-6 could have in the sim, as it has been one of the most widely used military trainers, and is altogether a very iconic aircraft. In addition to its use as a trainer, the AT-6 was also used in light combat operations and counterinsurgency, in conflicts such as the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Algerian War, and the 1971 Indo-Pakistan War. If the T-6 comes to DCS as a module, the model I'd most like to see is the AT-6D, with perhaps an SNJ with a tailhook, just for the giggles. In the combat role, the T-6 could be armed with a light machine gun, typically mounted in the right wing, and could also carry marking rockets. For the third aircraft that I'd like to see in DCS, we're going to go with the North American Rockwell OV-10 Bronco. Because so far in DCS there have been no official turboprop modules, and I think the Bronco would be perfect as the first turboprop module. The Bronco is a reconnaissance light attack aircraft that has seen service during the Vietnam War, the Persian Gulf War, and the Western Sahara War, and some more recent conflicts. The model I would most like to see is the one seen here, the OV-10D, which is one of the most modern versions. In terms of firepower, the OV-10 could be armed with 4 M60 light machine guns, and also a number of different kinds of rockets, dumb bombs, and the AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missile. Plus, just look at it. This one would win just on the look of the plane alone. For the fourth aircraft that I'd like to see in DCS, I would love to see the Antonov AN-2 with the NATO reporting name Colt. Because a while ago it was theorized that there would soon be an official transport module for DCS. And with that in mind, this is my pick, and one of the primary reasons I chose this over something like the C-47 Skytrain or the C-130 Hercules is that not only is the AN-2 easy to find info for, particularly in Russia, it is one of the most built transport aircraft in the world, and has been used in its transport and utility capacity as well as a light bomber in the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Croatian War of Independence. I don't see the need for weapons in a module such as this, so the module that I would like to see is the AN-2P. For the fifth and final prop-driven aircraft that I'd like to see in DCS, we're going to be looking at the A-26 Invader from Douglas Aircraft Company. This is a truly personal choice for me, as I have experience working around two different versions of the Invader, the A-26B, which is the type seen here, and the B-26K Counter Invader, and thus I would absolutely love to see this aircraft in DCS. The Invader saw service during the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Congo Crisis, and the Portuguese Colonial War. And if this aircraft comes to DCS, I would love to see the A-26B Invader, primarily, and perhaps the B-26K Counter Invader later on. The Invader was known for having either 6 or 8 50 caliber machine guns in the nose, with a pair of 50 calibers in the dorsal and ventral turrets, as well as some variants having wing guns in the, there were either 2 on each side or 3 on each side. The aircraft could also carry over 6,000 pounds of bombs and rockets, both internally and on wing hardpoints. The first jet aircraft that I would like to see in DCS is the Aero Vodochody L-159 ALCA. Now, at first glance, this might just look like an L-39 Albatross, and for good reason, as the ALCA, or Advanced Light Combat Aircraft, was developed as part of the L-39 Albatross family. However, this aircraft has some upgrades that make it stand out, things like radar, and the ability to carry laser-guided munitions, etc. I'd be partial to having either the single-seat A model or the two-seat B model in DCS. The aircraft can carry up to 5,000 pounds of weapons, including the CRV-7 rocket, the AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missile, the AGM-65 Maverick air-to-ground missile, the Mark 82 dumb bomb, and the Pavoy series laser-guided bomb. The second jet aircraft that I would like to see in DCS is the Chengdu J-7, NATO reporting name of Fishcan. This, of course, is the Chinese version of the Soviet MiG-21 fishbed, which we already have in DCS. So why choose this? Well, the MiG-21 was largely abandoned in terms of tech upgrades by the mid-1990s, whereas the Fishcan has been constantly, well, almost constantly upgraded all the way up to the present day, with production of the aircraft only ending in 2013. The J-7 has seen combat over Africa in the late 70s and over Iran and Iraq in the 80s. The variant I would most like to see in DCS is the J-7E, with the rather simple ranging radar, with the alternate variant choice being the J-7MG, which is a slightly more modern version. Weapons include a pair of 30mm cannons and a number of different Russian, Chinese, French, and American infrared-guided air-to-air missiles, as well as unguided rockets and dumb bombs. The third aircraft I'd like to see in DCS in the jet category is, of course, the Fouga CM-170 Magister. The Magister is a French two-seat jet trainer, and I know we have the L-39 in DCS in the jet trainer role, but I thought we needed something a little bit more vintage, so I chose the old French Fouga Magister. In addition to use as a trainer, the Magister saw combat during the 1967 Six-Day War, the Western Sahara War, the Salvadoran Civil War, and the Congo Crisis. If the Magister comes to DCS, my preferred variant would be the CM-170-2 with the uprated engines, and I wouldn't mind seeing the CM-175 Zephyr naval trainer, which of course comes with the tailhook. The Magister is armed with a pair of nose-mounted light machine guns and could carry up to 300 pounds of bombs and rockets. The fourth jet aircraft that I would like to see in DCS is, of course, the British Hawker Hunter. With the F-86 Sabre, MiG-15, MiG-19, and F-5E already in DCS, along with the MiG-17 well on its way, I figured I should pick a jet fighter bomber from the United Kingdom, so I chose the Hawker Hunter. As everybody probably knows, the Hunter saw combat during the Suez Crisis, the 1965 and 1971 Indo-Pakistan Wars, the 1967 Six-Day War, and the Rhodesian Bush War, among other conflicts. The variant I'd most like to see in DCS is the FGA-9, seen here, with alternate variants being the F-6 fighter and the T-7 trainer. The Hunter is typically armed with 4 30mm Aden cannons and could carry up to 7,400 pounds of ordnance, including SNEB rockets, AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missiles, and AGM-65 Maverick air-to-ground missiles, among others. The fifth and final aircraft that I'd like to see in DCS from the jet category is the Dassault Mirage III. With the MiG-21 in DCS, I think a fairly equivalent French fighter jet should be in the sim. With that in mind, I chose the Mirage III. There were over 1,400 of these aircraft built, and they have seen service during conflicts such as the 1967 Six-Day War, the 1973 Yom Kippur War, the South African Border War, the 1971 Indo-Pakistan War, and of course the 1982 Falklands War. The variant I would most like to see in DCS is the Mirage 3C Fighter, which is the one seen here, and I'd also like to see the Mirage 3B Trainer at some point as well. The Mirage 3 is typically armed with a pair of 30mm Defau cannons, and could carry up to 8,800 pounds of ordnance, including bombs, rockets, and numerous types of air-to-air missile. Of course, what wish list would be complete without a helicopter? As an honorable mention at the end of the video, we're going to give a look to the Bell AH-1 Cobra. Now, with a bunch of DCS players hopping onto the Apache bandwagon in recent weeks, I figured I would weigh in on what attack helicopter I'd like to see next for DCS, that being the venerable Bell AH-1 Cobra. Now, the Cobra series has been used during the Vietnam War, the Persian Gulf War, the 1982 Lebanon War, the Iran-Iraq War, etc., all the way up to the present day. The version I'd like to see most in DCS is, of course, the AH-1W Super Cobra, with an alternate variant being the older AH-1G. The Cobra has been armed with a number of weapons over the years, such as the M197 20mm cannon, as well as the Mighty Mouse, Hydra, and Zuni unguided rockets, the AGM-114 Hellfire air-to-ground missile, and the AIM-9 Sidewinder air-to-air missile. This concludes the video.